NTV.
Good morning, welcome back to Morning at NTV. My name is Malaki Vilodera and I'm not alone. I'm joined by Alan Chekwech. He is the chief sub-editor, Daily Monitor, and also Rita Kanya monitoring our social media feedback. It is a sad time for East Africa and Kenya specifically, of course, based on what happened yesterday. The police have just updated us and they say that that place, the 14th Riverside Drive, still remains to be a scene of crime, and so the operations are still underway. So far, over 50 people have been rescued from the same complex, and so it is a developing story. And right here, we're going to be looking at what you should be expecting in the dailies, and of course, taking a major focus on the Daily Monitor. You're welcome, Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mala.
You're welcome.
You're
welcome. So let's just get into the papers direct. And the cover page just says Uganda on high alert as terrorist attack Nairobi. And of course, we'll be seeing that on the screen so you can actually get to see how the front page of the Daily Monitor looks like. Mr. Chekwech, just let's get into this. Yesterday, when this particular story broke out at around 3 p.m. in Nairobi, of course, in Westlands area, the 14th Riverside Drive, as editors, how do you first collect and gather real information? Because, of course, by the time it's on the papers, by the time it's in the news, that's a verified information. But I'm sure at that time we were having a lot coming through on social media. Now the citizenry have become journalists as well, and we were having these pictures, videos coming through and sailing through from one phone to the other, from one person to the other. So just let us in on this, especially now that emotions were high on this particular attack, and on such attacks emotions are always high across the globe. As editors, how do you get to verify information, because I know it becomes quite sensitive?
Thank you, Mala. To begin with, it's a very unfortunate event. Right. We have, as journalists individually and as a media company, we have networks, also to say, but also because we are a nation media group, we have headquarters in Nairobi. So the first thing to do yesterday was to pick up the extension and call our editors there. Then let us find out what is happening on ground. We spoke to them, and then we also spoke to some of our journalists on ground. Social media aside, of course, we benefit from that leverage that we're a wide company in East Africa. We have so many bureaus right away from Busia here up to Nairobi and up to Mombasa. So yesterday when the news broke out, we first saw it on social media.
Right.
Of course, we have friends there, and then there is Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and so on and so forth. If you read our story today, it's a more detailed analysis because we had people on ground and we did not rely on other sources. So when we spoke to the editors there, we said, okay, what's happening there is very unfortunate, but can we have troops on ground? Mm-hmm. They told us we have the troops. And then we shared the content like that. Pictures that were coming in, we'll share both on our online sites and TV. Mm-hmm. Then as the stories came in, we started editing. We participated in this work. They gave us the raw stories. We edited, then we shared across the platforms, and that's where we are. We have a very rich story.
Right. And I totally agree with you, because once you grab your copies today of the Daily Monitor, that story is quite detailed. It is a story that starts from page 2, 3, and 4, 5. Of course, those are 4 whole pages detailed. And let's just flip over so we can have this conversation together. And Rita Kanya will of course be monitoring social media just to see the feedback. Remember, the hashtag is morning at NTV across all the social media platforms. Now, of course, like we've just flipped over on page 2, page 3, but what has caught our eye here on in the newsroom, of course, is page 3, where we have testimonies of different people. We have Grace Kamau. She is a survivor. She was rescued, of course, yesterday from that particular complex. So with such especially coming through as editors, and we've also seen pictures here, and you know New York Times is under attack right now for publishing, you know, graphic pictures of the same attack. But where do you stand as an editor? Do you think what New York Times has done, do you feel it as being ethical, or is it competition and business at the end of the day, because you know the media space is quite competitive? And what actually informed these pictures? Because yours are not graphic at all, but
exactly.
they tell the story. Every single picture has a whole thesis, so to speak, to it. It's elaborate, quite elaborate. So what's your stand as an editor as well?
To begin with, I wouldn't speak for the New York Times.
Yes, but your view as an editor.
As an editor, I think I'm more qualified to speak about the newspaper that I work for.
Right.
And we, at the Daily Monitor, at Nation Media Group at large, we uphold ethical standards. And I don't think there's a graphic image here at all. There's no overbleeding. There's no dead person there. All we see are charred vehicles. We have people being rescued. Yes, really. And then the hotel, which is really good for us. So we have a picture of the hotel there. People can place it where the things happened. We have people there running out, up and down. And also the Grace Kamau we talked about, it's our reporters on ground who spoke to them. And we got the views direct from them, from the survivors on ground.
Right.
So the issue of picture usage in other media houses, I wouldn't speak for them, but I will speak for this. And we selected the pictures very carefully together with the multimedia desk.
But what do the ethical standards of media ethical standards stipulate with regards to such coverage, and especially when it comes to pictorials, so to speak? What do the ethical standards of media and journalism stipulate?
The images, first of all, must not to put you off in the first place. Especially if you woke up this morning and then you're having breakfast and you say picture, and then it's a turn off. You don't want to go back into your meal again. That's one of the issues that we take care of. But by and large, the ethics that are applied to pictures elsewhere apply to us as well. So there are those editorial standards that we must uphold in terms of which picture do you use. Does it show a person overbleeding? Is a person dead? If we don't publish pictures of dead bodies.
Right.
And you don't see that here, even if there are reports that by last evening about 14 people had died, according to witnesses that spoke to our journalists. But you don't see any of that image here. You don't see. I saw a picture on social media showing a thumb, or rather a whole thigh that had been shredded.
I saw that.
We did not publish it.
Right.
So ethically, we're not supposed to show that. We show it's good enough to show you what happened, but not bad enough to put you off.
And of course, we have a lot of feedback, and you published one, of course, 2 responses from key figures here in the country. And I'll just read this, and this comes from Mr. Robert Chagulanyi Sentemu. Of course, this is a Chadondo East Member of Parliament, and he said, my heart is with our brothers and sisters affected at the 14th Riverside Drive in Nairobi, Kenya, where there has been a terrorist attack. We also have Mr. Emilian Kaima, the outgoing police spokesperson here in the country. He went on to say the entire security apparatus in Uganda, more so the Uganda Police Force, is watching the security situation in Kenya and following the developments there with a wider viewpoint of ensuring security and safety for our people wherever they are. I must add, these types of criminals will be defeated wherever they set their foot, be it in Kenya or here in Uganda. The sane world cannot be intimidated by a bunch of criminals. So that's a reassurance right there. And I think as editors, kudos to this, especially being on this spread and on page 3, especially now that you know this side of the page is more prime than the left side of the page. So let's just flip over, and as we are just moving away from this particular story, I don't know, as editors, just bring us to speed, especially now with the assurance coming from the outgoing spokesperson, Mr. Emilian Kaima, you know, of course, reassuring Ugandans that of the security and saying that as much as it's happening in Kenya, it's being controlled, but don't worry, do not be in fear. Let's just have a look at the history of such terror attacks here in Uganda, especially dating back to 2010 when there was that particular twin bombing here in Kampala. Just bring us to speed on that particular history timeline.
To begin with, they chose, first of all, why we picked this story as our lead and gave all these echoes. Kenya and Uganda share a lot. We either coexist on either side of the border. See, from Karamoja down to Busia, Netherlands. All those people crisscross the border. And then we have a lot of business happening between the two countries. So any scare in Nairobi or any part of Kenya will directly affect us here. If you remember the 2007 post-election violence, where the railway line was uprooted somewhere around Chibera or Jamhuri, that side, many Ugandans lost business because of that. I'm aware of some Ugandans who had not been compensated until last year because of the losses of the post-election violence. So any security threats in Kenya will directly impact on us. Then the issue of Al-Shabaab is a regional matter. We've faced such attacks before, like in 2010, the Chadondo, an Ethiopian village. We lost about 76 people. And any threat brought about by Al-Shabaab will really trigger an emotion down here in Kampala.
Right.
So I think looking at the events of 2010, then looking at the events of 2013, even in Nairobi, where the Westgate Mall attack happened, and then the 2016 of the Garissa attacks, they've been sporadic, quite sporadic in Kenya, unfortunately. This attack just tells us maybe something is going to happen very soon, and therefore.
You think so?
Not here in Uganda.
Right.
But now it's almost like a question of if, not when. Or rather, when, not if.
Right.
Because we don't know when the next attack will happen. The chief magistrate in Nairobi on Monday actually said 3 of the suspects of the 2013 Westgate Mall attack had a case to answer. They acquitted 1 person, but then 1 day later we have an attack. So it means it seems to be a systematic planning around all this. So I don't think that we should let down our guard because this has happened. It can happen in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years. It's just an accident waiting to happen. And all security forces should be really on top of the game on this.
Right.
Yes, to avert a similar situation.
Across East Africa,
yes,
like you mentioned.
I don't want to be a prophet of doom.
Right.
But it's just a caution. We give this story all these echoes because we really want everyone else to be alert. We want the security forces to do the job well. And we appreciate them when they do it very well. And we appreciate them for how they respond to this. But the issue of Al-Shabaab is a regional issue that even our own president here speaks about all the time.
Right. And of course, we'll be having that conversation on, like you're saying, how we can go about practically being on the high alert, because you just told, be on the high alert, but you really don't know what being on the high alert really means. But just dating back to 2010, when it happened here, of course, home in Uganda, the twin bombings in Kampala, of course, this happened in the Chadondo rugby grounds on Ginger Road and the Ethiopian restaurant in Kabalagala. That itself, over 74 people losing their lives. That was a shocker, you know, to Uganda and the region at large. Basing on that, and now that we have not been seeing, you know, quite sporadic events like, you know, Kenya has been experiencing, would you attribute that to maybe something that the Uganda security forces are doing right in terms of just ensuring that our borders are secure and the city and the country at large is secure? Would you attribute it to that, or it's because because maybe Kenya has a stronger fight against Somalia? As an editor, of course, you've been following this through.
That will mean it should be a security analysis. But be it as it may, we really need to give credit where it's due. I don't want to say the Ugandan security has done more than
what Kenya has
Kenya
done. Right.
But it could be that because they're near to the Somali pirates and the Al-Shabaab, the other side, than we are here. Because we're a landlocked country, it becomes a little bit harder to access Uganda than it is in Kenya.
Right.
But I do not want to say which security forces are doing a better job or what Uganda is doing. I don't think that will be my call. But we really need to thank our security forces every other time because of the work that they do, either here or in Kenya. These incidents can happen anywhere. It can happen in Uganda, and we don't not say this. The Ugandan security has let down the guard. It can happen anywhere, but all security forces in the region need to do their best.
Okay, all right. Let's flip over, of course, as we come to a close. Be sure to grab your copies today. Interesting stories right there, quite informative stories you don't want to miss out on, and something that will affect all of us somehow, especially them that are in this space, is on page 10 of the Daily Monitor. You will get to see that on the screens in just a few seconds. And the story there is KCCA doubles billboard fees to plug funding gaps. Yes, so we will be seeing the players here cry a little bit of foul. And on page 11, the fees are actually going up, and there's a table detailing how these rates are going to move and how the increment will look like, so to speak, on a per annum kind of basis. So, Mr. Chakwech, this happening in the newsroom, did it shock you? Did you see this coming?
I do not want to say I was shocked, because in the world that we live in today, anything is possible. But also, KCCA justifies, if you read the story, they say this is intended to raise more revenue, but whether the prices should have been doubled is another issue altogether. Many people in this town do a lot of business, and branding is one aspect of that business. Everyone is going to advertise. Even NTV is going to advertise.
Right.
Daily Monitor is going to advertise. Everyone else. So many people do not know actually that even putting a stick on your vehicle will attract a tax. That even putting a painting on your wall will attract a tax. So everything that advertises your business is taxed. And many of them have been doubled. If you look at registration fees from 200,000 to 500,000. Application fee is from 10,000 to 50,000. It's a lot of money that is going that's going to KCCA here. But if I wouldn't want to talk about what the taxes will do, or rather what this money will do, or something like that. But we felt this is a story that every person in Kampala doing business will want to read.
Right.
Will want to associate with. So it informs you on how much are you going to put into your business in terms of branding, how much are you going to expect from that business, returns and so much and so forth. I do not want to speculate about the repercussion of all this. Ours is just to report the news as it is.
And to inform the masses.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. And there's something interesting that we see every single day, and this is the regional extra. Of course, now today the focus is on Western, Northern and Eastern. Like every single day we see this.
Covered,
Exactly, all regions covered. So as a newsroom, I know this wasn't there years back, but it's a new phenomenon in the papers. What is this? Just get us to understand, because this gives us a leverage, so to speak, over the rest. But what was your initial intention, or what exactly would you like the masses to know with regards to this segment? Because people, I'll tell you how people flip over the newspapers, and I see this a lot. They will come here, they look at the top story, Then flip over. By the time they get to page 7, they're done. So why should people be looking out for stories in the Regional Extra, and what should you be expecting today?
To begin with, the Daily Monitor is a national newspaper.
Right.
And secondly, this has not just begun. For several years, we've been covering the regions. All the years, actually. We've been covering the regions. But also, the newspaper's role is to give people what they need to read and also what they want to read. If someone, say, in Kabale or in Kanungu, wants to read about what has happened in the area, the newspaper is not just about Kampala. They need to know what's happening back at home and also what's happening in Kampala. So all these regional extra pages is just to spread our wings wider, to have that national appeal that the paper is, and also to give us stories from those far-flung places. We get so many interesting stories from our country. Everything happens everywhere, every day. You have business happening in Kabale, you have business happening in Kampala, you have sports in Tororo, you have a court session in Arua, all those things. So all that, as a national newspaper, will have to be captured in one package.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So, Rita, we will look to you just to check on what maybe there is, the feedback that there is on social media. What do you have for us, Rita?
Well, as it stands, it's still the hashtag going by. Riverside attack is the hashtag that we're going with, and a number of people are just simply coming in. From a number of tweets, someone just simply says, this is Nairobi, and the fact that he just adds a picture of Nairobi and says that it is business as usual as it stands there. Still going by what's happening on social media, some people are continuing to recount their stories. The survivors have been able to tweet, and they're saying, we're safe, we're alive, thank you so much for the prayers. Out of the 50 that were rescued just an hour or two ago, they are finally tweeting. Some are still calling out on the New York Times. And one of them, this is coming in from Kat Mimi, she says, this is how you covered the mass shooting in November the 8th, 2018 in your own country. And all the images that they showed in regards to this story is that there was a gentleman, I seem to be losing it, but they just simply showed 2 gentlemen standing outside.
Right.
And that is all they ever showed in regards to the shooting. And that was the image they showed. In regards to the fact that people are really, really, really angry with the New York Times, and they don't seem to understand how they can be okay with posting the images, the graphic images that they did in regards to the suicide bomb that was a part of the Riverside attack. Still going ahead, New York Times is still the conversation in each and every situation.
Right.
And in Kenya, earlier on, it was Riverside attack that was trending, but now, as it stands, it's Kenya. And the fact that, as the editor had mentioned, the fact that there's a simple way of putting everything in regards to just talking about the fact that, yes, the complex. Now, we have also a number of tweets coming through, most especially from the media world, but we also have one coming in from Masi Murungi, who says, all I can think of is how heartless, how insensitive, how condescending, how rude it is to Kenyans. I have not seen an apology from her yet. That is in regards to what has been published, and it's been quite a few, the language used there is quite not the best. But we also have a number of people coming up with images in regards to them just saying we are strong, hashtag Riverside attack. A number of tweets are using things like this to just be a part of what is going on online. Now also one says they thought they had wounded the lion behind the flag, but they are wrong. The lion behind the flag continues. It is unmoved, unbowed, and unconquered. That is coming in from Cartwright 4. That is exactly it.
Okay.
Now we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we will be coming through with On the Ground, where we have Chamagero telling us what the people there think about in regards to their security.
Thank you, Rita. Thank you so much, Mr. Alan Chekwech, for joining us this morning. Of course, you're going to be a common figure on the morning show. Thank you so much, Alan Chekwech, the chief sub-editor from the Daily Monitor right there. Be sure to grab your copies and subscribe to the online e-paper. That has been it for Press Review. Don't go too far. Morning at 10 TV still continues.